everybody. It is time to get this show started. Welcome, everybody, to the Lunchtime Discovery Series. It's good to be with you again for another edition of our program. My name is Chris Smith. I work out here at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences in downtown Raleigh, and we've got a good show for you today. I'm really excited about it. We're going to be talking about what I think is probably one of my favorite mammals, and definitely like top 25 best mammals in North Carolina. And you're like, well, there's not that many, are there? Chris, what are the other 25? No, we're going to have a fun conversation. I'm excited to learn more about today's topic. Glad that you're here for the program. Of course, this program is brought to you by the folks at the Office of Environmental Education within the Department of Environmental Quality. And today they have reached out to their neighbors in the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission in order to bring today's guest speaker today to talk to us about what's probably one of your all's top 25 best mammals in North Carolina, black bears. I think lots of people love them. Lots of people might not know a whole lot about them. And only if you're in certain parts of the state do you ever really have to think about them that much or come across them. If you do, it can be magical, but I think as we're going to learn, you got to be a little bit careful about how you do that. Today's guest is a special projects biologist with the Wildlife Resources Commission, and Ashley Hobbs joins me now. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm doing all right. Glad you could be here for the show. How's the bear weather out there where you're at?
It is ice cold over here. I'm in Asheville today. Definitely a little bit chilly. We've got some snow in the higher elevations, so fall is here for sure.
Wait, y'all already got cold and snow coming.
Yeah, the Blue Ridge Parkway in some areas has had to be shut down earlier this week for ice and snow.
No kidding. And right when everybody's coming to look at the leaves, yeah.
Exactly. Kind of a bummer.
Well, I think we're going to learn a little bit about how all those Blue Ridge Parkway visitors should behave when they're around wildlife today. And I'm excited for your presentation.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Take it away.
All right, folks. Well, my name is Ashley Hobbs. I am the special projects biologist, which is a really vague title. That kind of just means I do work for all the human wildlife interaction calls that come in for Buncombe County. So I'm a bit local in that aspect. But I also run our BearWise program statewide, which is kind of how it brought me here to you guys today. I'll share my screen here with you. So we do have our BearWise program statewide. It is a national program. And we will kind of go through a few different topics today. First, I want to talk about black bears in general. I want to talk a little bit about their behavior as well so that you understand why they're doing the things that they're doing in your backyard. Then we'll switch over a little bit to what the heck is BearWise? How can I be BearWise around my community? Even you folks in the Piedmont and the central part of the state that don't have a lot of bear activity can still really benefit from being BearWise now before bears do move into your part of the state. And then we'll wrap it up a little bit on bear encounters. Big question I get asked a lot is, what do I do if I see a bear? What do I do if I'm out walking, etc.? So we'll talk about a few scenarios there and what you should be doing if you do encounter a bear. And I'll have plenty of time at the end for questions, so don't worry about that. And I'll provide some information if you need to reach out to me after as well. Always happy to chat about bears. So we'll dive right in here again, talking about bears and bear behavior. If you look at this map here on the screen, you'll see that light blue color. That color indicates the current range of black bears in the southeastern U.S. We do have about 70,000 bears total in the southeast, and about 20,000 of those bears reside here in North Carolina. So we do have the largest population of bears in the southeastern U.S. That makes us pretty unique. There's a few other things that make us pretty unique as well. We do have a coastal bear population, which countrywide is pretty unique for a state. And we don't have an established population in the Piedmont. So you see white in the central part of our state. That's okay. What's in the central part of our state? Raleigh, development, lots of people. So we don't need bears in that part of the state. So it's okay that we just have these two distinct bear populations. And we'd like to keep it that way. So that we avoid conflicts with bears in that Piedmont developed area. So if we look at our two populations, our coastal population has about 12,000 bears. There may be more than that, we're about to start, or we have just started, a census for our bear population out on the coast. So we'll have more detailed information in a couple of years here once that project is completed. However, in the mountains, we just completed a census on our bear population, and we found we have about 8,000 to 9,000 bears in the mountains. Probably surprises you to know that we have more bears on the coast than we have here in the mountains, probably because every company in town has a bear as their logo. When we think of the Smokies, we think of black bears. But in our state, again, we're pretty unique. We have that significant coastal population. That reason for that could be there's a temperate climate compared to the mountains, more temperate on the coast, which means longer growing seasons for a lot of their natural food resources. There's fewer people on the coast as well, so there's a bit more room to spread out, a bit more rural, a bit less developed. And then if you add on swampland, marshland, that's great habitat for a bear out there on the coast as well. And agriculture, the coast is very agriculturally based. So something like a soybean or cornfield is going to be like a bear buffet in terms of providing an extra food resource. So not to say that we don't have a lot of bears here in the mountains, but certainly a lot of bears on the coast as well. Another big difference that you'll see is the size of our bears. We're very unique here in North Carolina. Not like anywhere else, the male bears are going to be larger than the female black bears. However, on average, they're going to be males around somewhere 250. Females on average are going to be more towards 150, 175. But they can get very large. Black bears can get as big as or bigger than grizzly bears. Our record here in the mountains where I'm at is 716 pounds. Out on the coast, we have the world record black bear. That was 886 pounds. So big bears, essentially, if there's a lot of food available to them, which we do have a lot of natural foods available out in the landscape, then they are going to get very large. But on average, they're somewhere around 250 to 150, depending on if they're male or female. So how are they getting this big? Well, essentially, they are wired for two things: to go on dates in the summertime and to eat every other day of the year. So they're going to be using all of their senses to find food on the landscape. Their eyesight, pretty similar to ours. If you, like me, and you need contacts or glasses to see things at a distance, you have pretty similar vision to a black bear. They can see in color as well, but they have a little bit of trouble with the red and yellow into the color spectrum. A lot of times I'll get calls from people and they'll say a bear stood up in the backyard. It was going to get them. It was aggressive. And I have to stop them and say, hey, bears can't see very well. They're trying to stand up on their hind legs to get a better look at you and engage their other senses to figure out what the heck you are over there in the distance. So I tell people to put themselves in the bear's shoes. So if you are bent over in the garden picking up weeds and you think you saw a bear out of the corner of your eye, what are you going to do? Turn around, stand up, get a better look, right? That's exactly what a black bear is doing. They can also, when they're standing up, engage their hearing better as well, because their hearing is excellent. As you can see on this guy and most bears, they have these big satellite dish ears. They can rotate those independently to hear exactly where a sound is coming from on the landscape, how far away that sound is. And they can actually hear frequencies much higher than you or I can hear as a female. So a lot of times you'll hear people give advice to make noise as you're out walking the dog, gardening, hiking, camping, whatever the case may be. And that's because these guys have an excellent sense of hearing. So they can hear you coming before you even know that they're in the area. The other thing, they have a really strong homing instinct. And think about this like a built-in GPS system. So they can remember where different resources on the landscape are. So, for example, as a cub, if their mom has them feeding at a really productive grove of white oak acorns, which is their favorite, in the fall, then when they are on their own as an adult, they remember where that location is and they'll go back to that same grove of acorns. Or if they find another resource on the landscape, like your bird feeder that you keep filling up for them each time they knock it over, they'll remember where that is and they'll keep going back. They're very much creatures of habit and they have excellent memory. But also with this internal GPS, that's the reason why we don't relocate bears in our state. 9 times out of 10, when I get a call about a bear, it's somebody calling me, asking me to take that bear somewhere else. And in North Carolina, we're not Alaska. We don't have these big rural swaths of land where I can put a bear, then it probably won't interact with another human being. Over 90% of our state is privately owned. So finding somewhere to put a bear just is not going to be feasible. Outside of that, that internal GPS comes into play as well. Many studies have shown you can take a bear several states away and they will make a beeline right back for where you picked them up in the first place. Interesting study going on right now in Great Smoky Mountain National Park as well. In that study, they are relocating bears outside of the park and then looking at the outcomes. What they're finding is over 2/3 of those bears aren't surviving relocation. It could be they get hit by a car, meet a more dominant bear, meet an intolerant person, whatever the case may be. Most don't survive relocation. Those that do either go right back to where they were in the first place, which kind of defeats the purpose, or some of them, very few, do establish a new home range. So it's just not an effective option to relocate bears. I always opt to change people behavior to change bear behavior. So because of that, we don't relocate bears in our state. And last but not least, I want to talk about their sense of smell because this is primarily what they use. Their sense of smell is excellent. They can smell things over hundreds of times better than we can. Their sense of smell is 7 times better than a bloodhound. So if we put that in terms of distance, a bear can smell something like your leftovers in your trash can outside from over a mile away. The kind of accepted distance between most biologists is 10 miles away. And some biologists even put that more towards 25 miles away. But certainly if a bear can tell which pizza toppings we had last night because of the box left in the trash can from over a mile away, that's a pretty significant statistic. So they're using all of these senses to find food on the landscape. So what are they looking for? Pretty much anything and everything. These guys are opportunistic omnivores. So if the opportunity to eat something presents itself, they will capitalize on it every time. On top of that, they're omnivores. So they eat meat, insects, plants. They kind of eat a little bit of everything. So they have a very diverse diet. In the spring and summer, they're going to be aiming to consume about 3,000 to 5,000 calories per day. Now, they're not pulling out their app and putting in each little ant that they eat, but somewhere around 3,000 to 5,000 calories per day is what they're aiming for. They're going to be targeting in the early spring the insects, new roots and shoots that they can find. Once we get into the summertime, soft mass will come into season. So things like blueberries, blackberries, serviceberry, whatever kind of berries they can find, they'll target those. And then in the fall, they kind of do a big switch. Their metabolism changes. They're getting ready for winter when there's less natural food resources available to them. And they're going to be trying to pack on pound to the winter. So their new calorie goal in the fall is 20,000 calories per day. They're going to almost exclusively consume acorns. Again, they prefer those white oak acorns. It tastes a little bit better, I guess. And so this time of year, we call that hyperphagia, super mega eating mode. But again, certainly if other options come up on the landscape, they'll use those anytime. So if they come across something that's dead in the woods, roadkill, for example. In the springtime, when the fawns drop, if they find a fawn that's not up and running yet, they'll capitalize on that as well. So they're, again, opportunistic omnivores. So what will they eat if it's available? Again, a little bit of anything and everything. Things like bird feeders, hummingbird feeders, garbage, pet food, handouts that they get from people. Those are all super high calorie food options. So I like to kind of put this in context of calories. So if we have a jumbo bird feeder, so everybody has to have the biggest bird feeder, and you probably have multiple bird feeders in your backyard as well. A jumbo bird feeder usually holds around 7 pounds of bird feed, generic sunflower seed mix. That bird feeder contains 20,000 calories for a bear in that single bird feeder. So this time of year, that's a whole day's worth of calories in that one bird feeder. In the spring and summer, that's almost a week's worth of calories in that one bird feeder. Usually we have more than one, and our neighbors have one. Our neighbors' neighbors have one. So we have these bear buffets set up where they can gorge themselves on calories. And we have those things set up right next to the back door, right on the back porch, in these spaces that we as humans use quite often. So we're encouraging and rewarding these bears for coming up so close to our homes. And again, they're creatures of habit. They have excellent memory. So they're going to keep coming back and checking for that food resource, which brings people and bears into close contact. So that's kind of how we end up here. I like to pick on Buncombe County because that's the county that I cover, but also because it is just so outlandish here when it comes to bears. So you'll see Buncombe County in blue on this pie chart, and you see in red is the entire rest of North Carolina. So on average, Buncombe County accounts for about a third of our bear calls statewide each year. Now these can be observations. It can be, everybody has a Ring doorbell camera nowadays. So sometimes people call me and they'll say, hey, I saw a bear at 3 a.m. come through my yard on my Ring doorbell camera. What do I do? And it could be, hey, I have a bear in my kitchen right now. What do I do? And kind of everything in between there. But Buncombe County accounts for a significant portion of these calls each year. Probably because we have a lot of tourism. Probably because we have a lot of people moving here from places where they haven't had to coexist with bears before. We also have a growing bear population in the mountains still. It's still growing by about 3 to 5% each year. So more bears, more people. And then you have people who have lived here for decades. And there wasn't really an established bear population, back in the 50s. But now we have bears coming through people's yards multiple times a day. So having to adjust in that time period to a new and growing bear population is significant as well. But we're not alone. Many states in the southeastern U.S. were kind of experiencing the same situation. More people, more bears, more calls. So that's kind of how BearWise was born. There's other programs out there, Bear Smart, Bear Aware, there's a ton of them. But one thing that all of them were lacking was the emphasis on science-based, consistent information. So the idea behind BearWise is you're never going to get advice that maybe works for one person but doesn't work for most people, or you're never going to get suggested something or a product that hasn't been scientifically proven effective. We don't want to waste your time. We want you to coexist, and we want you to have the best tools possible. The other thing is we wanted people to have consistent information. There's no guesswork. BearWise only deals with black bears. That's primarily the bear species that we have countrywide. There's only 5 states that have grizzlies. So we needed more information specific to black bears. So we wanted consistent information as well, so that if you have a mountain house here in North Carolina and a beach house down in Florida, you get the same information on how to coexist with bears no matter where you're at. We wanted to ideally be preventative, for sharing ways to prevent conflicts from happening in the first place. But we understand that people are already experiencing conflicts, so we need to give people tools to resolve those conflicts as well. And we also encourage community initiatives through BearWise communities, businesses, recreation areas, etc., where people agree to come together, follow the BearWise basics to coexist with bears. And the more of these groups that we have around town, we can kind of piece them together like a puzzle and have these bigger areas of people coexisting with bears. BearWise.org is an excellent resource. I highly recommend you bookmark it on your laptop and reference back, because it covers any and everything bear related. And it's a great resource if you have questions, or if you're looking for a little more information or resources like flyers. That's all on BearWise.org, one-stop shop for everything bear. But we were so successful in the Southeast that other states started coming to us and saying, well, how can I use these flyers? How can I participate in BearWise? So we did move to a national program 2 years ago. And how it works is your state agency pays a fee to participate in BearWise, and they get to use the flyers and the documents and all the resources available to us as biologists. We also get to participate in the creation of new material, so that the information you're getting on how to coexist and techniques and products, etc., are coming straight from the biologist managing the bears in your state. So it's a very unique program in that respect as well. So with that, we've kind of boiled it down to the 6 BearWise basics. These are the 6 best ways you can coexist with bears around your community. And we'll dive into these just really briefly. So number 1 is never feed or approach bears. And I know you're thinking, duh, but it's not so straightforward for everybody. Most of the time when I see bears are being fed, it's unintentional. You put the bird feeder out for the birds, the bear ends up eating the bird seed, which you didn't intend to happen, but it happened anyways. However, if you know someone who is intentionally feeding, attracting, approaching, interacting with bears, we need to know about it. And I'll have a phone number at the very end where you could call and get more resources on how to report that information. But we need to nip that in the bud very quickly to keep people, pets, and bears safe. So this is an article or a news segment, I guess, that came out on the Raleigh-based news station just last week, maybe the week before. Kind of sums up what not to do.
Black bears.
So we've had 8 to 10 bears at one time.
They come close.
At least with this chain link, I can get closer to them.
She likes being close to them.
You know, you just wish you could hug them, but I know I can't. But look how big those paws are.
Good she has the chain link.
I had some dog bowls, those metal dog bowls, and Janny, my husband, put holes in them so they would drain. So we've got them screwed to the deck railing.
She's talking about metal bowl bird feeders, but it's usually the bears and not the birds that feed and walk the rail.
It's just amazing.
Like a balance beam.
Yes, yes, yes.
They will climb a tree.
See him up there? What you doing? Huh? You okay? I've got friends calling me the bear whisperer.
Are you ever scared?
No.
And neither are they.
They know they're safe up here. So many people have a misconception about the black bears. They don't want to attack anybody. Usually they'll run from you. No, I'm not afraid of them at all.
Janice lives in Swannanoa on a mountaintop.
Always.
So this person here is approaching bears, interacting with bears. I think there's a reason why she has chain link fence over her back door. And what she's doing is causing bears to lose their fear of people and then start to associate people as a source of food. So that's what we want to avoid. Of course, this is a pretty extreme case here, but something like leaving your bird feeder out for bears to get into consistently does still cause them to lose their fear of people and start to associate it as a source of food. So let's move on to food, garbage, and recycling. Garbage is one of the big ones that attracts bears to communities. Remember, their sense of smell is excellent. They can smell your trash can from over a mile away. One thing that I want to point out is it's okay to have a picnic in your backyard, go to a local park and have lunch. These things are fine. Just don't leave your food unattended. Don't put dinner out on the back porch and then go inside to answer the phone and be gone for a little while and then be surprised when a bear runs off with your dinner, right? So never leave your food unattended. That goes for groceries as well. Make sure you close your car door each time as you're taking in the groceries, because I have bears all the time run off with a week's worth of groceries. The other thing is your vehicle. Every year I have vehicles totaled over something like a French fry under the seat. So make sure you're not leaving food in your vehicle. Make sure that you are locking your doors and rolling up your windows each time. What I see is people trust their neighbors. They say they live in a safe area. They don't lock their doors or park in the garage, whatever the case may be. But I tell them that's fine if you trust your neighbors. Don't trust the bears, because this is where we end up.
We got some brisket if you want.
Oh my.
He's opened that door. Oh my god.
Psst. Get out of there.
Oh my god.
No, no.
Bear open
Hey.
just as I would.
Oh my god, I got it. Oh my god. Whoever's Impala that is. Oh my god.
Get out of there.
So what often happens is these bears get inside. They're big fat bears. They're moving around and shaking the car, and that car door closes behind them. Now you got to call me to come get the bear out of your car, and you got to call your insurance company because you got bear poop, bear pee, and your interior is just torn to shreds. So trust your neighbors. Don't trust the bears. Lock your doors, roll up your windows, make sure you're cleaning out all the food from your vehicle. The second one is garbage and recycling. Best thing you can do if you live somewhere where bears are even just passing through on occasion is put your trash on the curb the morning of collection and as close to your collection time as you can. Never put it out the night before. That's when even raccoons, rodents, coyotes, things like that are tending to get into your garbage. So always put it out the morning of pickup. You can always store trash in a bear-resistant container, or keeping your trash can inside of a garage, locking shed, things like that on non-collection days can kind of lessen that window of opportunity for a bear to access trash. When they're accessing trash, they're getting a food reward for that behavior, which then again reinforces that people provide food. So here I have a bear-resistant trash can that locks, but that lid is pretty flimsy. So that bear, if there was a trash bag inside, could still get the trash out, would still get that food reward. This one, on the other hand, has a reinforced lid and a lock. So the bear can use its teeth, claws, drag it around, and it's not going to get the food.
The new bear. Look at him. Look at him bite it.
Take a picture too, Rob, so that we can see them. I cannot believe that. What do you think Amy should do for some? Got the claws. Take a picture.
So something like that can go a long way in kind of retraining bears not to associate us and garbage cans as a source of food. Number 3 can be fighting words for most people, but that's remove your bird feeders. If you live in bear country, specifically out in the mountains, out on the coast, I recommend you don't even mess with bird feeders. It's not worth it. Again, they're high calorie food resources that we put right in our backyard, right next to the back door, right on the deck, etc. There are tons of ways that you can attract birds if you're a bird lover, bird watcher, like nest boxes, shallow bird baths, and planting pollinator gardens is really excellent as well. It kind of provides a food resource and habitat for some of those species you might not otherwise see at your bird feeder specifically. It cuts down on disease transfer for birds, predation on birds as well. And usually you see a wider diversity and a larger quantity of birds when you do have something like a pollinator garden instead of those bird feeders. Now, if you're somebody that absolutely has to have a bird feeder, if you have to do it when bears are least active. Black bears go through a false hibernation. They're not going to be unconscious in a cave all winter long like movies and books and things have us believe. Bears are going to be up and active in the middle of January on a nice day. So go ahead and plan from St. Patrick's Day to Thanksgiving to have no bird feeders. And then after Thanksgiving, you can put out your bird feeder again. And of course, if a bear still comes along at that point, bring that bird feeder in until it moves along. Even if you hang your bird feeder 50 feet up in the air, or if you put it on a third-story balcony, that's still accessible to a bear. I have not seen a hanging situation where a bear hasn't eventually figured it out. They're little tightrope walkers if they need to be. And then consider the spillage. As the birds, chipmunks, etc., feed from that feeder, it spills on the ground, which is an attractant for a bear, even if it's just a little bit. And the smell itself of the bird seed is an attractant as well. So my advice, don't go for bird feeders, hummingbird feeders as well, high calorie food resource, plant for birds instead. Number 4 is pet food. Usually this is outdoor cats. They get fed on the back porch, something like that. But it could also be small livestock like chickens and goats as well. If their feed is not stored correctly, your screen and porch is not bear resistant. A bear just kind of bumps into the screen and breaks through on accident and they figure it out. So make sure that you are only feeding your pet what they need for that meal and then bring that bowl inside. And make sure that the bags of feed as well are secure. You can put them in a bear resistant container, store them in a locked shed, store them inside the house as well, or in a closed garage, somewhere where a bear can't access. Number 5 is your grill. And this one gets overlooked, but man, if a bear is going after grills, that's very expensive to replace. If we lift up the lid of the grill, we smell the cheeseburgers from last week pretty strong. And if it's strong for us, it's strong for the bears. So you're probably already cranking up the heat and cleaning off the bits. That's great. But make sure that you're pulling the drip tray each time as well. And don't make the mistake of just tossing the drip tray off the side of the deck. That just moves the smell 5 feet to the left. So make sure that with anything stinky, your grease trap, your chicken bones, your veggie scraps, whatever it is, you can put it in the freezer. I keep a bag in my freezer. All of our scraps go in there. And then on trash collection day, that frozen bag goes into the trash can of curb. That lessens the smell, minimizes the smell. It doesn't get rid of the smell, but it can help in making your garbage less attractive on collection day until the collection company can get there to get it. Number 6, you're probably already doing as well, and that's just let people know if you see a bear, if you're experiencing bear activity. In our BearWise communities, there's a certain system set up to report bear activity, and a person is in charge of letting everyone know what's going on. Social media works great. Facebook groups are great. Nextdoor is very popular as well. But don't forget about good old word of mouth. If you saw a bear in your neighbor's yard a few doors down and you see somebody walking their dog in that direction, just let them know so they can reroute and avoid that interaction. That keeps people, pets, and bears safe. So why should we do all of this? And if I'm going to wrap it up in a bow, I'd say that bears are just traveling through our communities. We're giving them reasons to stick around. When bears are hanging around homes, they're most likely to be hit by a car. Specifically here in Buncombe County where I'm at, that's the #1 source of mortality for a bear is vehicle collisions. You see also Buncombe County, Haywood, McDowell out here in the mountains are kind of our hot spots. And then out on the coast, there's a lot of vehicle mortality happening as well. So by keeping all of these attractants secured, the bird feeders, garbage, pet food, etc., we keep bears moving through rather than hanging out in the backyard where they're more likely to be near these roads, interstates, etc. The other thing we want to avoid is, again, them becoming habituated or losing their fear of people and starting to associate us as a source of food. This bear is a yearling bear. There's, I think, 3 yearlings here, so it's about a year, a little under a year and a half old. Still with mom. Mom has taught this bear that if it operates that lever door handle, it can get inside the house and there's food inside the house. So that's where this bear is starting out life. It's only going to snowball and get worse from there. So if a bear gets into a situation where it's a public safety issue, then we do have to consider re-educating people to re-educate the bears. And we may have to step in and don't relocate bears in our state. We may have to step in and lethally remove that bear to protect public safety. So in Asheville, this is what I see all summer long.
No, no! Get out of here! Oh my God.
Sorry. So again, this is where this bear is starting life. And we want to avoid this. And we can do so by securing attractants so bears don't feel comfortable coming up on our deck like this. They don't know that they can get food up on the deck like this. A normal bear at this age should be terrified of people. It should see this person on the other side of the door and run the opposite direction. However, mom has passed on the information that there's food inside the house. So we have this kind of generational effect on top of everything else. So let's switch over a little bit to bear encounters. What should you do when you see a bear? But what should a bear do when it sees you? It should try to avoid you. It should get away from you. Their MO is to run away, hide from you, and to climb trees, especially black bears like to climb. So at the top of this tree here, you see a big old black bear, and at the bottom, you see a little tabby cat. So when it comes to fight or flight, black bears are very much on that flight end of the spectrum. So I always tell people, just like you don't want to be close to them, they don't want to be close to you. So if you're in a situation where you're out hiking, camping, whatever the case may be, even just walking down the street in your neighborhood, and you see a bear, keep in mind in all of these scenarios, you want to make sure that bear has an escape route. They don't want to be near us, just like we don't want to be near them. So what you want to do when you see that bear in the distance is just stop. Don't continue to approach the bear. And then you want to back away in the opposite direction. You do not need to run. These guys are omnivores. They do eat meat. They do have that predatory instinct. So if you run, you could change a situation from otherwise being innocuous, where you and bear went in the opposite direction, to that bear instinctively chasing you because you are now running. The other thing that you want to do is make sure you keep an eye on the bear. If that bear goes in the woods off to the left and your trail loops around back to the left, you don't want to bump into that bear again. So a little dash of common sense goes a long way. Give them an escape route, back away in the opposite direction, do not run. If you're in a building or you come around a corner where you're at close proximity with a bear, especially if you're in a building, you want to back away the way that you came. And if you, let's say you came in through the front door, you want to leave through the front door and leave that door open, get yourself to a safe spot. These bears will try to get out of there by taking probably the route that they came, but any available route to escape, they'll take that. So make sure you're not closing it into your house by locking the door. For bears in the bathroom, don't shut it into the bathroom. Now you're going to have to remodel your bathroom, and you're going to have to call me to come get that bear out of your bathroom, and nobody's having a good day at that. So make sure that you're giving an escape route, getting yourself to safety. If you were, if you backed away in the opposite direction, you gave that bear an escape route and it continued to approach you, make sure that you stand your ground at that point. You've already tried to let that bear get away. It's got plenty of space to get away. Hold your ground. You want to get big and scary. If you've got a jacket or a backpack, put that up over your head. Make the craziest noises you've ever made. If you're walking along a trail and you can throw sticks and rocks, do that as well. Just let that bear know you mean business. Bears are black bears are very non-confrontational. So if you are putting up a fight, if you're letting them know, hey, I'm in business, you don't want to come over here, then those bears usually will go the opposite direction. If you were in a situation though where you backed away in the opposite direction, kept coming, you stood your ground, got big and crazy, it kept coming, that's when you want to deploy bear spray. Bear spray is deployed when that bear is about 30 feet from you. And what it does is it makes a wall between you and the bear. So the bear would have to pass through this cloud of capsaicin or pepper, and it would get into their nose, which again, very sensitive, get into their eyes. It is going to give them a really bad day, but it's not going to harm them. So ideally, you do this at 30 feet. If you do it when the bear is too close, you won't have big enough wall between you and the bear. If you do it when the bear is too far away, then that cloud can dissipate before the bear gets to the spray. So make sure you're doing it about 30 feet. And the idea is that it's going to stop that bear so that it's not going to continue to approach. It probably will run away, but it gives you an opportunity to get yourself to safety. Now, switching over a little bit to probably the more common instance when people see bears, and that's kind of in their backyard. And a lot of people get this mentality that bears were here first, so we shall let them do whatever they want. And I cannot disagree with that more. Bears should be just moving through your yard. If they're just passing through, that's fine, that's normal, I'm good with that. If a bear is laying down in your backyard taking a nap for an hour, that bear is way too comfortable around people, too comfortable in your backyard. So you need to set boundaries for bears. We set boundaries for pets and people and neighbors. We need to set boundaries for the bears as well and let them know it's not safe to come up on the deck. It's not safe to sleep in the middle of the yard in the afternoon. You can do this with a signal horn like you see on the screen. Banging pots and pans works great. Shaking out like a big trash bag. Whatever you can do to kind of change it up often and find something that really scares them and makes them feel uncomfortable hanging out so long in your backyard. Again, if a bear is just passing through, that's fine, that's normal, but we need to set boundaries when they're hanging around. It's better for the bears, again, keeps them from being hit by cars, keeps them from meeting intolerant people, keeps them from associating us with food, and reinstills that wariness of people that they should naturally have. Last but not least, I want to talk about dogs. If you live on the coast, if you live in the mountains, or if you live in an area where you're seeing bears frequently, you should have your dog on a leash at all times. I do not care if you have a Great Dane, if you have a Yorkie, if you have a Plott hound bred for hunting bears. I've seen all breeds of dogs injured or killed by bears. Make sure that you have your dog on a leash. They are arch nemesis. It kind of goes back to wolves and bears and evolution and all of that. They feel defensive towards each other. And unfortunately, the bear is better equipped to defend itself than your dog is. So definitely don't use your dog as a deterrent for bears. Don't let your dog chase bears. Always have your dog on a leash. I know it really is a pain in the butt. There's a hurricane outside. You got to take your dog out to go potty. I know it gets cold and dark at night, but have your dog on a leash. Check your yard before you take your dog out. And recognize that a fence in your backyard is not bear resistant. Bears can climb trees. They can climb your fence like it's nothing. So here I have a video. This is a kind of classic bear in the backyard scenario. This woman comes around the corner and encounters the bear. She gets big, loud, crazy, scares the bear off, lets it know it's not safe to come up on the deck.
You shan't throw the bears here. Let me go in your office, because he might come after me.
Get down! Right now! Go! No! No! Down!
she got the big cat bear, but when she let it know it was not welcome there, it's not safe there, that she means the business, it turned tail and run exactly how it should. So this is my last slide here. It's got some good information on it. Again, BearWise.org is an excellent resource. I really encourage you to check out the website. It's got flyers on there you can share with neighbors, coworkers, etc. Really great. I'll also put up here our NC Wildlife Helpline. This is who you should be calling for any wildlife issue, but especially for bear issues. You see there's a website, or sorry, a email address and a phone number there, and it's open during normal business hours, but you can always, shoot an email, leave a voicemail, and someone will get back to you. And then my information is up here as well. If you know another group that could really benefit from a talk like this, we're always giving talks, always trying to spread BearWise information. So just drop me a line and we'll get you sorted out. Yeah, I think, Chris, we're ready for questions.
Fantastic stuff. Everybody, let's give Ashley a great big round of applause wherever you happen to be. Maybe you stick your ear out the window. You might hear the applause, Ashley, from your office there. But yeah, excellent stuff. A fun presentation, also very informative.
I'm glad.
Yeah, like really good tips on what people should do, and the things that people probably might not think about, like taking care of the grills. Like you have a party, and then everybody just goes inside and you leave it out there overnight, you're in trouble.
Exactly, yeah. And things like just the number of calories that these things have. If you kind of switch your thinking to how many calories do I have sitting in my backyard right now? Sometimes it kind of makes sense why these bears are so apt to come so close to our home sometimes.
Makes total sense. Viewers, if you've got questions, drop them in the chat. I'm going to be looking to all of you for your thoughts, questions, maybe even experiences. Share those with us, and I'll share them over here into the program, and we can probably get some answers to your thoughts and questions. I'm curious, Ashley, since you're dealing with the public, it sounds like a lot, and dealing with their interactions with wildlife. If you are seeing people, say in Buncombe County, get the message, because I feel like there's been a lot of bear information that's being shared out in places like in and around Asheville, so that I would hope more and more people are using these tips and following these guidelines. But have you seen movement?
Yeah, so I think kind of the go-to answer for most biologists is, they gauge success by the number of calls that they're getting. But I don't think that's the best metric for Buncombe County. The way I gauge success for BearWise, specifically in Buncombe and really statewide as well, is I want people to be sharing BearWise information with their neighbors. So being the millennial that I am, I'll get on social media and, if there's an article about bears or, something on Nextdoor about bears, I'll kind of take a look. And what I see more and more is that people are saying, hey, you should check out this BearWise talk that's going to be on Thursday, or go to bearwise.org, or call the NC Wildlife Helpline. All of those things I think are big, because that reaches more people than I can ever reach by myself, even with the best social media campaigns. So word of mouth is really crucial, I think, and it really helps ingrain BearWise in the community. And so I think that's how I gauge success, and that's definitely what I'm seeing over the past few years, is more and more of that word of mouth spread.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel like you're seeing fewer people who have the idea that the bear should just be relocated, or worse, just, lethally removed?
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a common thing for like lots of different animals that we might deem as pests in any particular situation, as you go, well, we should just get rid of them.
Yeah, I think we've had a big shift, even just from the management side of things, from the biologist side of things, where, yes, in the past, especially in other states, maybe not necessarily our state, but moving animals on the landscape that were not desirable was kind of the go-to, because people, for the most part, people don't want to see animals killed for conflict reasons, but they just want them to go somewhere else. And I think, you know, in North Carolina, we're pretty unique because we've never really moved bears on the landscape, maybe way back when. So I still get a ton of calls from people who either they see it on TV or on social media from other states moving bears when they come into conflict with humans. But we just don't do it. So a lot of that, though, is because we have such a growing population of people, specifically in Buncombe, probably Raleigh as well. People moving here who just don't know how we operate. So it is a bit of a learning curve for a lot of people. And usually once I explain how we're going to re-educate people, get more information out there in their community or whatever the case may be, usually they come around. And if you can give people tools and techniques to empower them to resolve issues themselves, I think that's pretty key too.
My last question, do you see a lot of videos or get a lot of calls where people did like the videos you showed where they feel like the last video, right?
Mm-hmm.
That lady did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
She came out, I was ready to run. But in some of the other videos, they were more concerned about, making sure they got the video or making sure they got the pictures. And they just wanted to see the bear because even just watching the bear from a distance is some sort of interaction that the person wanted to have, it seemed.
Mm-hmm.
So like trying to deter the bear was nothing more than like rapping on that window real quick and then backing away.
Right.
Seemingly because it's like, well, the door's locked, the bear's not going to get in. I feel safe in this situation and I want this interaction. So convincing people that like, no, if you're in a vacation home in Asheville and a bear shows up, you need to get it out of there.
Yes. Yeah, so I think it's kind of this fine line between being so blessed to live in communities where we have black bears around. You know, that is something that we are, very fortunate to have because we live in bear country. But I think there's a lot of misinformation, and it kind of goes back to that bears were here first mentality. That's primarily what I see is people think, well, bears live here and we've destroyed all their habitat. So, it wasn't hurting anything. So I just let it, I sat on my back porch and watched it, or I didn't mind when it got in the bird feeder. That didn't hurt me at all. Or it got into the trash and I picked up the trash after. It was no big deal. So that kind of bears were here first mentality is actually hurting bears a bit because they're given a free pass to get these food resources over and over. So I think it's a bit of a, we need to kind of shift people's frame of mind from doing what's best for bears without loving bears to death. I think that's kind of the growing pains that we're having right now in a place like Asheville specifically.
Yeah, even a place like the Smoky Mountains National Park, right? Even in the remote corners of the park, for example, the bears are still under management.
Yes.
Because otherwise they can do themselves or others harm. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, let me see what the viewers are thinking about, what questions they've got. Lots of appreciation for your presentation in the chat, first off. Thanks. David wants to know why there aren't bears in the Piedmont.
Yeah, so our bear population kind of grew from the Smokies and then it's kind of grown down into the coast. If we went back to, say, around the 50s, we probably had less than 1,000 bears statewide. So we kind of identified that, bear hunters identified that and said, hey, we need to do something about this because we're about to lose bears in North Carolina. And so we did go through a big recovery process. At that time, there were no bears established in the Piedmont. And again, that's okay. There's so many people and so much development there. We put in bear sanctuaries to protect mothers that are of breeding age or that have cubs from hunting and other pressures. And then we really focused on habitat improvements. We really started enforcing stronger hunting regulations and doing a lot of scientific research as well. And we've been a huge success story in recovering our bear population. So historically, that's where those bear populations were. And when we started our recovery process, that's where the two populations were. And we've recovered those since. So that's why there's two distinct populations.
There you go. If people wanted to know more about the distribution of bears across the state, maybe to find out what it's like where they live, if it looks like they might be in bear country and are a little unfamiliar with it, are there good resources for that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's maps on the ncwildlife.org. We have a bear profile, essentially, where you can learn anything and everything about North Carolina bears and bears in general. So there are maps on there, range maps. Those are going to go through a big update here pretty soon as well. So expect to see a new version of that soon. But that'll kind of show you, there's a great map on there, and it will show you kind of by color as the bears have progressed, as the recovery efforts have gone on as well. So go to ncwildlife.org, go under Learning Species Black Bear, and that'll have a ton of information for you.
Excellent stuff. And our next one, how are bears affected by more urbanized populations, such as cities like Raleigh or Wilmington or Asheville?
Yeah, so I like to use Asheville as a great example because we're doing a ton of research here specifically for looking at the impacts of people, development, et cetera, on those urban bears. So in Asheville in particular, and places like Gatlinburg is another good example, or Lake Tahoe is another good example. What we're finding is that the concentration of people and bears is resulting in more bears. So kind of you would think that bears in an urban area, it would act as what we call a sink, where bears come into the city and they die. So it's kind of like the bear population is funneling out in that city. But what we're finding is the opposite. Asheville, for example, is a source. There's so many natural food items available in Asheville and Buncombe County in general. But also everybody has their bird feeders out and their trash and all these other, artificial foods available, which supplements their diet. When they have more calories, they reproduce at an earlier age. So, for example, in Asheville, we see bears that will have their first litter at 1.5 years, 2 years old, right after they separate from mom, which is very early. And we also see that bears in Asheville are having more bears or more cubs per litter as well. So the reproductive rates are through the roof in these urban areas because of the artificial or supplemental feeding that they're getting outside of their natural food resources. So it's really interesting and kind of counterintuitive almost.
Yeah, well, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah,
I was thinking cities were, death knells, and they are not.
And again, the number one source of mortality for bears in Buncombe County is vehicle mortality. Because it's so developed, there's not a lot of hunting pressure, and there's tons of food available for them. So starvation doesn't come into play really. So vehicle mortalities are it. And bears, they're kind of funneling out of Asheville and kind of occupying those areas around Buncombe County and further. So it's definitely acting as a source. The Urban Bear Study is really cool. I encourage everyone to kind of read up. They've got a lot of great information coming out.
That's incredible. Okay, let's see here. Do bears travel through areas like the Piedmont? Kirsten's heard that also bears will travel along rivers. Is that true?
Yeah, so those maps I was talking about are the progression of the bear population or the bear range over time. A lot of what those bears did is follow the rivers. So that's definitely true. Creeks as well. Bears really like to take the path of least resistance. So like many species, they'll follow the rivers. And what was the first part of the question?
I've seen reports of bears in the Piedmont. It's
Yes.
normally like 1 or 2 a year, something like that. Do they often come through our part of the state?
Yeah, so maybe not often, but maybe more often as the years progress and as our bear population, particularly in the mountains, it continues to expand. Usually those bears are what we call transient bears. Usually they're younger bears who maybe just left mom, the family broke up, and now they're trying to establish their own territory. They can kind of wander into those, kind of transitional areas between the mountains and the Piedmont. And you may see them kind of wander through a suburban area, just kind of figuring out life, looking for food, looking for mates, and looking for a territory.
Yeah, that's why keep an eye on your network, your neighborhood social media, because you never know around here. All right, last one for you that I see here in the chat, and we're almost out of time too. What's your most unique bear call on the job or an interaction that stands out for you?
Yeah, this summer I had 2 bear cubs that had cheesy poop containers stuck on their heads. Like a cheesy poop container, like a big pretzel container, the jumbo size.
Oh
ones.
my gosh, the big Costco
exactly
plastic tub. Oh wow.
those are always pretty unique, and it's always amazing to me how resilient those little cubs are, because usually we can't get to them right away. Usually they're pretty hard. It's hard to find one bear on the landscape, especially when you're looking for that bear. They tend to be nowhere to be found. Yeah, I did have 2 of those this year, and it's always interesting to see how resilient they are. And it's always quite the saga trying to locate them and talk to neighbors and communities and figure out where they are, where they're going, and try to locate those bears. So those have been the most unique so far.
Gosh. I hope that one had a happy ending.
They both did, yes.
Okay, yeah, excellent, good. I was like, wait a minute, did you find them? Oh my gosh. There's still a bear out there just licking cheese dust off the inside of a.
Not. But it does happen, bears and trash.
Right. Well, Ashley, thanks for being on the program today. I think everybody, whether they're in the mountains of the coast or don't live that close to bears at all, are definitely going to have some things to think about anytime they are in bear country.
Definitely. Little common sense goes a long way. BearWise.org is a great resource too to kind of brush up if you're going into bear country.
There it is, BearWise.org, everybody. Check it out, share it with your neighbors, share it with your friends, family, even the people you don't like. We also don't want them to be helping the bears. And folks, thanks for tuning in to today's edition of the program. We will be back here again next Wednesday at noon with another Lunchtime Discovery series. Head to eenorthcarolina.org. There you can get information on the next talk. You can also sign up for the Lunchtime Discovery series email newsletter. That way you get the YouTube links to come and join us in your inbox every single Wednesday. You'll just be a click away from meeting interesting people who are out there doing really cool work across the state of North Carolina and sometimes beyond. So thanks for being with us. I hope I'll see you all again real soon here on our program. Take care, be safe, be kind to the bears. We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.